Greetings and salutations. This is Carla from MooreTalkJa, and I want to go my bed and I can't go my bed because of the $150,000. Now, if you don't know what the $150,000 is, a man, 30-year-old man, married man, was caught kissing a 13-year-old girl in an abandoned building downtown Kingston, with plans to have sex with her later, and he was fined $150,000 with no jail time. His name wasn't even made public. Um, and all of this, he got off with all of this because the girl consented to it. The 13-year-old consented to it. Let me explain something to you. I don't care if that 13-year-old did cock up on her head back and flash her prepubescent vagina at this man for 25 days running. He is the adult in the situation, and the onus is on him to make the right decision. I don't care if she consented. And then they're going to go on and say she wasn't coerced. And I see people on the chat rooms and all the comments, because you read the comments to find out the real gungo. All of the comments are like, well, it's not like him did really put like a knife to her throat or a gun to her head and force her. So I'm never coerce her. What do you know about coercion? Is that the only way that somebody can be coerced? There's no mention of the girl educational background. There's no mention of like her level of income. And even regardless of all of these things, the fact is this is a 13-year-old child interacting with somebody who is 17 years her senior. This child is fresh out of primary school, and this man is a big established person working on all of those things. The age difference between them is enough to coerce her, because I'm sure that this big grown man, she's in some type of awe of him and definitely don't know how to negotiate anything. And then somebody's going to come and tell me the story of the little force-right Jezebels who are leading men astray. Because I talk to people about these things, and I find taxi men tend to tell me these stories a lot. They come and them tell me, say, yo, Miss Carla, you don't know, things are going, them like a girl bad out the road, Some of them, them a run down the man, them come in at the car and them a touch up the man, and all of them type of something there, and then he's going to tell me the story of when his 50-year-old friend has sex with the 12-year-old girl. The 50-year-old has sex with the 12-year-old. And how the 50-year-old did it, and while he was having sex with the 12-year-old was telling him that he must force it harder because I know if he thinks there's some man do it. And then somehow I'm supposed to muster up some sympathy for this 50-year-old man who is desecrating his 12-year-old girl because she has somehow challenged his manhood. Really? Is this where we are? Like, this is how little we value our children, or this is how willing we are to write them all off as bad, that we do not recognize the real problem in this situation? You're never going to have an entire generation that just born bad or born wokeless, regardless of what your parents said to you about your generation being a generation of vipers and what you're saying about this generation being a generation of vipers. Every generation is the product of what they are born into. So if it is that these young girls have come up in a situation where the only thing they know that their bodies are for is to sell them in order to get sex, and the only way they know how to have sex is like the man beat them and brought them up, somebody told them that because they weren't born inherently knowing that. And it's not their peers who are telling them those things. No, it is somebody who is older than them that's sending them that message, which means it's us, and the message is that we allow to filter down to them that's creating this world for them. So if anything, they are the victims of the work that we did not do to create a better world for them, but somehow we want to turn out and act like we are the victims because these little 12-year-old Jezebels are seducing us. The 12-year-old cannot seduce you. The 12-year-old can do whatever the 12-year-old do. You can make a choice to say, this is a 12-year-old child, I'm not going to have sex with them. But we don't take responsibility for our children, and we don't see where we need to protect them. We don't. Because if you saw a 5-year-old walking with, I don't know, like a fork towards an electrical outlet, you'd take the fork out of the 5-year-old hand, right? And this is where somebody is going, I don't know, because some of them violent, them goodly have gone. But let's just say in theory that we didn't take the absolute worst case scenario and turn it into the only scenario as a means of absolving ourselves of responsibility and basically being cowards in this country. You would stop the 5-year-old, don't it? Okay. And if it is that you saw children, I don't know, there was a house burning and they were like, oh, look, that looked fun, and they were running towards it and they were like 10 or 11, you would have tried to stop them from going to the house, yes? So why is it that you feel that when there's a 12-year-old, you don't have the same responsibility to her because it's in the sexual arena? Oh, I know, because there's a benefit to you. So essentially, you're selfish and more concerned with what you are going to get out of having sex with a 12-year-old than the actual repercussions. So when it is that this man is allowed to have sex with this 13-year-old girl, His name is not published, so nobody actually knows who he is. So he could be coming to your house to have Sunday dinner with you, and they are going to be publishing all of these things about how this behavior was abnormal, and he's already admitted that it's inappropriate, and he's a good and dutiful man, and he labors hard and all of that stuff. When all of this go on now, what happens to the girl? Because for better or worse, what we've done is we've established the going rate for one night of fun with an underage child, because it was admitted that he had planned to come back to have sex with the child. So, and he had dated her repeatedly. So this man was in a relationship with a 13-year-old. I don't care how dutiful and laborious you are, you're a pedophile. So this pedophile was in this relationship with this 13-year-old, but because he's a good man, everybody thinks that, okay, he doesn't have to spend the time. Well, I would like the government of Jamaica and the judicial system and everybody to recognize that 150,000, that's like, what, 1,500 US or something like that. That's basically what you would pay to have sex with like a young, fresh virgin inside of the other black market, like sex slave selling sites. So in that way, we're on par. We're actually giving the going price. And this money, this $150,000 that's collected, where does that money go? It goes into the coffers of the government of Jamaica for national development. But how much of that money goes back to that girl? Probably directly to get her counseling to deal with any trauma that she might be having around this. Insert the people who said the girl don't have no trauma because some of them old and hard and go and jump off a cliff. So what about those people? So does any of this money actually go back to this girl in any way, shape, or form? Or does it go back to her community so that she and other little girls like her could probably have access to some social service or some opportunities, so they wouldn't have to be trading themselves on the black market to the highest bidder of a pedophile to probably find a way out of poverty, to maybe get them to think about who they are and their own personal readiness for sex? Like, does any of that money actually benefit this girl, or does it just be that we're now selling our children for $150 a pop? I'm wondering if people are seeing what I'm seeing, because I know that I'm being extra snitty in this vlog, and I know that it sounds like I'm being bitchy and all of that, but I'm really frustrated by the way that we are not taking any personal responsibility for each other and any personal responsibility for ourselves, and for the way that it come in, like, as a culture, we dislike the youths. And I've heard singers say it, and I've thought about it for 1 and 2 times. But the more I think about it, is the more it seems like, because the generations below us are not like us, in a way we've transferred all of our baggage to them about all the things we are disappointed about, and we've just given up on them, and we've just left them on their own, and anything that happens to them is something that they've brought down on themselves, and we don't look at how they are being victimized by the same unfair conditions that we are living under. But as young people, they have fewer tools to handle them. And because the country is woefully lacking in social services, especially in underserved areas like the ghettos that this girl probably comes out of, they lack the social tools. So you get a child who has no idea how to negotiate things. Her belly is probably hungry. The only thing she probably know of still is sex, and the thing she probably feel like she have valuable honor to offer is sex, and she probably don't see no other opportunities. But instead of recognizing that this girl is in a terrible limit situation and saying something must be done to save this girl, we sell this girl for $150,000, none of which goes back to her. None of these profits actually go back into her coffers, and the man who does it walks free. When are we going to wake up? We keep on talking about how the country now have no future and how the country just keeps getting worse and worse. Yes, of course the country keeps getting worse and worse, because the country keeps being run by the children or the people who are cussing that the country is getting worse and worse. And instead of investing in our children, we are cussing them and treating them like dirty dogs and hooking them out. So $150,000, you can have sex with an underage Jamaican girl, and we won't publish your name, but most likely the little girl will go back to the community, and everybody will know that she was having sex with a man in an abandoned building, and she will have to deal with the shame of that. And all the same situation she was probably trying to escape through having sex with the man, she'll go right back to them, and the man will go back to the same cushy life that he had, because nobody knows he did this. But it was out of sorts for him. Listen, I'm not one of those people who believes that you should punish a person forever. I do not think that you need to constantly make an example of a person. If a person does something wrong, they should do their time. When they come out, provided that they actually have been rehabilitated, allow them to go back to their life. So I'm not saying that you need to crucify this man for what he has done. And it's not a situation where, you need to make him into this villain. But he does need to take accountability for the fact that he is a grown adult above the age of consent, reaping the perks of adulthood and all the privileges of adulthood, and he must carry the responsibilities of it. I never want to hear anybody ever tell me again how a child force rape and how the child did run down anybody and the child consented to it. Because what is consent to a child? There is no such thing. They are carrying adult responsibilities, but a lot of them are not in the positions to carry them. We force those things upon them. A fruit can force ripe. Nothing is going to happen unless you pick the force ripe fruit and eat it. If you left it up there, it will go rotten and drop off of the limb, or it will naturally come into ripeness because the amount of time has passed. But it's you have to go and interfere with the force ripe fruit, feed either bind up your belly or something else like that. So if you see them and you know say them force ripe, leave them alone. You are an adult, carry adult responsibility. I never want to hear anybody absolving themselves of their responsibility to a child again because of something that the child did. You are always the adult, and it is always fully, firmly, and 100% going to be on you. You are nasty pedophiles hiding under the way that we hate people who are poor or women or children or any other type of minority group, and I refuse to stand for it anymore. Jamaica, you need to stop hiding nastiness under your hatred for people who are unlike you. Do better.